The fourth kingdom, Babylon. In this Bible study, we are going to learn of the fourth and final kingdom, which was first made known to Daniel in a vision from our Father, and of which Daniel in turn wrote down and gave us as a prophecy concerning the end times. This same kingdom was also revealed to John of Patmos, also known as John the Revelator, as he scribed the words of Christ in the book what we now call Revelation. Like Daniel, John too was shown in a vision and was given a prophecy of this fourth and final kingdom, which is to say the kingdom of Babylon, of the end times. Babylon, of course, meaning confusion. We are going to be reading from the books of Daniel and the book of Revelation to make known and clarify that these two books are inexorably linked together, and the visions given to these two men of different time periods of the Bible speak and reveal the same exact kingdom of the end times, which again is the kingdom of Babylon. And these prophecies reveal which events shall consummate the end of this earth age. So let us now go to the book of Daniel, and we will lay a little groundwork. First, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, of which Daniel was able to interpret and give the meaning thereof. Then we will go to Daniel's vision, Daniel's dream, and see the connection with John's vision in the book of Revelation. Again, the whole point of this is to reveal the fourth kingdom and who is the king of the fourth kingdom. Before we begin this, let us ask our Father in prayer for wisdom and guidance. Father in heaven, we come before you, and we ask that you lead us, that you guide our understanding, that you reveal to us things hidden, that we may better understand your overall plan, that we will not be deceived, and that it may be found pleasing unto you. And we ask this, Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Now we're going to be going to Daniel chapter 2, and as I had alluded to, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had a dream which troubled him greatly, and none of his magicians or wise men were able to interpret the dream for him. So he sent for one of his enslaved servants, which was Daniel, because it had been told to him that Daniel had a gift and could interpret the dream. So we're going to pick this up where Daniel is standing before Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. So, chapter 2 of the book of Daniel in verse 26. And the king answered and said unto Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Verse 27. And Daniel answered him in the presence of the king and said, Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. Verse 28. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. Verse 29. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. Verse 30. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Verse 31. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. Verse 32. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass. Verse 33. His legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay. Verse 34. Thou sawest till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and of clay, and brake them into pieces. Verse 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken into pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that there was no place found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the earth. Verse 36. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Verse 37. Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee the kingdom, power, strength, and glory. Verse 38. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. Verse 39. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. Verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. Verse 41. Whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. There shall be in it the strength of iron, forasmuch as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. Verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Meaning, it shall be divided. It will never quite make it. Now this is a prophecy of what shall befall in the end times. This fourth kingdom shall rise, and it will never quite come into being. This would be the one world government, which will never fully take off until Satan comes and all unite under him, thinking he is Christ returned. The 10 toes as well, we will see later in this study, are 10 kings, or 10 world leaders, which are supernatural. And they do not mix with clay, which is to say these flesh bodies, because they are angelic, fallen angels which Satan brings with him. Again, we will make all of this clear as we move on. Verse 43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. This is basically an example given with like what happened in the book of Genesis chapter 6, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men and took them to wives. This is speaking of the fallen angels that shall accompany Satan when he comes claiming to be Christ's return. Verse 44. And in the days of these kings, in other words all these 4 kingdoms, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. The kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Verse 45. For as much as thou sawest the stone cut out of the mountain without hands, that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. The dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Now, this image, this beast, you might say, is symbolic of 4 kingdoms which shall rise, and by our time have already risen, and now we're heading into the 4th kingdom. This dream would prompt Nebuchadnezzar, in his pride and in his self-glory, to build to himself an image which was made of gold and which was 60 feet tall, and the base was 60 by 60 cubits. And of course, Nebuchadnezzar would demand that all should fall and worship the beast, and as many as would not worship it should be killed. He demanded that they should all fall and worship when they heard the 6 instruments play. This is a type of 666, the mark of the beast. Now we know that 3 Hebrew children, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, did not fall and worship the image, and were cast alive into the fiery furnace, but lived. And as Nebuchadnezzar himself marveled, there were 4 men in the fiery furnace, and one was as the Son of God. This was a type and example to us of how God's elect shall be delivered up before the false Messiah, the Antichrist, and shall never fall and worship him, but rather shall give a testimony against him, as spoken by Christ himself in Mark chapter 13, Matthew chapter 24, and Luke chapter 21. This false Christ is also written of in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 by Paul. But these 3 Hebrew children were an example of God's elect, which shall not be harmed. It is written that they cannot harm a hair on your head. And the stone which breaketh in pieces, the beast, or the image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, is a type, of course, of the stone, Jesus Christ the rock, which shall destroy the 4 kingdoms, and the 4th kingdom especially of Babylon, under the Antichrist, who is Satan, the real king of Babylon, which is to say, confusion. We have another example in our own modern symbology of a beast system. The Great Pyramid, without its capstone, which has been used as a symbol for many years on our currency and in various other things, Masonic signs or what have you, is a symbology of this same Babylon rising. The pyramid minus its capstone is symbolic of the stone that the builders rejected. Now, the Great Pyramid without its capstone is exactly 606 feet high, just as the dimensions of the beast and just as the mark of the beast number. This is an example to us of that which has been built without the true capstone, or the true rock, meaning Jesus Christ. It's symbolic of the world being made subject to the beast, or the beast system, which shall be a one-world government minus the true Messiah, which shall cause the whole world to wonder after this political beast, this one-world system, and then finally the king of it, which is none other than the king of Babylon, the head man, Satan himself. Now, the missing capstone is often portrayed on our money, on our currency, and drawn opaquely, and within it is contained the all-seeing eye, symbolic of God and of Christ. Verse 46 to continue. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. Verse 47. And the king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou could reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the province of Babylon, and the chief governors over all the wise men. Now, we're going to continue with this thought, and we're going to go now to Daniel chapter 7, and we're going to see Daniel's vision, Daniel's dream himself. This vision would trouble Daniel, and even though he got the interpretation of it, he will not understand the full scope of what it means, and it will trouble him. This is one reason why it is written in Ezekiel 28, when God was addressing Lucifer, and said, Thou wert made the full pattern of wisdom and beauty. Thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret they can hide from thee. So turn over a couple of chapters to Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions in his head upon his bed. And he wrote the dream, and told the sum of the matters. Verse 2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. Verse 3. And 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, diverse from one another. Now, just as a footnote, 4 in biblical numerics or biblical symbology is always symbolic of the earth. The earth has 4 seasons, 4 times of the day, morning, afternoon, evening, night, 4 elements, being the firmament, the air, fire and water, four directions: north, south, east, and west, meaning the whole world. You may recall it is written in the book of Revelation, "He shall send his angels to gather the elect from the four winds, where they have been scattered," meaning from the whole world. Now the sea, is written in the book of Revelation, is symbolic of the people of the world. That is explained there. It was made very clear to John from the words of Christ himself and from the angels. Verse 4. Now this is the first beast that rises up. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like a bear, and it raised up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. And there is symbology even here. The bear is, of course, symbolic of the Red Nation, in other words, the Rus, Russia, not necessarily just the country itself, but comprised of the children of Esau, which are well known for communism, socialist ideology. And the 3 ribs are symbolic of the 3 Christian dominions: the Americas, the United Kingdom, and Europe. If you like, you can even look at it as the 3 big religions of the world, and how this one world system is attempting to secularize and communize and socialize these 3 religions and cut them down to size with politically correct attitudes and policies. And this beast system of global one world government is being created upon this foundation. Verse 6, to continue with Daniel's dream. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, the leopard is an animal with spots. The leopard is known for its quickness and its stealthiness. This leopard is symbolic of the sons of Cain, which down through history have denied the truth and have covertly acted to carry out the fleshly agenda. As written in the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 5, they have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are a perverse and crooked generation. If you do not understand this, or who the Kenites are, the sons of Cain, better said, I have a study called Satan's Seed, Cain's Progeny. I also have a study called The 4 Hidden Dynasties, which covers this very well. This perverse and crooked generation means offspring, as well as our English meaning of the word. In other words, generation meaning a period of time and a certain group of people. But this animal had wings as a fowl, 4 of them, earthly. Remember what Jesus said in the parable of the sower about the fowls of the air which came and devoured the good seed? And dominion was given to this beast. Just look what Cain's children have accomplished down through the decades, down through the years, all through history. They have made and broken kingdoms. And today, people are actually ignorant enough to support their secularist ideology under the guise of being free. And they will teach your children that they evolved from apes and that God is a laughable myth. And people wanting a freebie will support them and the crooked politicians they empower by voting them into office for a gift and allow them to socialize and even attempt to communize this country and the world. Just give me what I want and I'll vote for you. Give me entitlements and I'll vote for you. Give me welfare and I'll vote for you. Give me a HUD home and I'll vote for you. Give me a loan I can never pay back and I'll vote for you. It all comes down to the same thing: corruption and bribery. Verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. It was diverse from all the beasts before it, because it is something that there has never been before, which is to say, a world government, which is ruthless and rules everything, which regulates you, which gives you very little privacy. And these 10 horns, does that ring a bell with anyone? It should. As alluded to earlier, the 10 toes mixed with fiery clay. If you have read the book of Revelation, there are the same 10 horns which are on the 7-headed beast which rises up out of the sea. Now, they are 10 supernatural beings, 10 kings, which come to power with Satan. And the sea, of course, being symbolic of the people of the world. The waters are the people of the world, as written in the book of Revelation. These 10 horns are 10 kings which come to power with the Antichrist, because they are none other than fallen angels in support of Satan. Verse 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. This will be Satan himself, before whom the 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. This is because his rule was way more vast than theirs. In other words, the whole world. And in this horn were the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Remember what it says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? That man of sin, the son of perdition? That is exactly who's being referred to here. Satan himself. As written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And he has the eyes of a man, all right, because he is a man. As written in Ezekiel 28, God told him, "Thou art a man and not God." Verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and his hair, the hair of his head was as pure wool. And his throne was as a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, as the judgment was set and the books were opened. Does anyone recognize that from the book of Revelation? Verse 11. I beheld, then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld till even the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. Now, this refers to the end of Satan's reign, the end of the deception of the Antichrist. For it will be revealed at this time that he was the false Christ, to the embarrassment of all who didn't know the truth and who did fall and worship him. Verse 12. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Verse 13. Verse 13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one likened to the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Verse 14. And there was given him dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away. His kingdom shall be that which shall not be destroyed. Now this is referring to the great stone which breaks in pieces the 4 kingdoms, which is none other than the rock, as I said, Jesus Christ himself, whose kingdom shall never pass away. Verse 15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, and in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. Verse 16. I came near to one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me. and he made known the interpretation of things. Verse 17. These great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Verse 18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Verse 19. Then I would know the truth of this fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were as iron, his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. Verse 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, before whom the 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Well, let me stop there for a minute. Why is this king that rises up, why is his countenance, his looks, more stout than his fellows? Well, quite frankly, because the other kings, the previous 3 kings, have been human kings. But this king is not human. It is Satan himself, playing the role of Christ, the Antichrist, which is what Antichrist means. It means in place of Christ. As written in Ezekiel chapter 28, though Satan is evil, his countenance is that of beauty, which is why his deception works so well. In the book of Revelation, it is stated that he looks like a lamb but speaks as a dragon, meaning he looks like the lamb slain Jesus Christ, but he speaks deception and lies because he is the dragon, Satan himself. 21. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them. This is when God's elect shall be delivered up before the kings and councils for a testimony against them. Because Satan will overpower them for a time, until the return of the true Christ. Verse 22. Until the Ancient of Days came, and the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all other kingdoms, or all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. In deception, you might say. It shall devour the whole earth, meaning it shall rule the whole earth. In other words, a one world government. And it shall break in pieces and subdue. It shall destroy spiritually all who bow a knee to this system and who worship Satan, believing him to be the Christ. And the only reason they do this is because they are not familiar with their Father's Word. They would rather believe pastors and preachers who teach false doctrines, such as the rapture. Well, it says right there in the Bible there's going to be a rapture. No, it says there will be a gathering back. But it also says that gathering back comes after the tribulation, not before. Verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. He shall be diverse from the first. He shall subdue 3 kings. Again, these 10 kings are 10 rulers, 10 fallen angels, which come to power with Satan. They shall subdue 3 kings. Now you can take that as the 3 kings of the Christian nations, or the 3 previous kingdoms before them, whichever way you like it. Either way will be accurate. But it shall encompass the entire world. Verse 25. And he, speaking of this king, Satan the Antichrist, shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time, and times, and a dividing time. Now, that is 3.5 years. Now, I personally believe that this system shall really take hold under a 3.5-year period. It's already got the building blocks and the foundation laid even now, but it's building up. However, I believe that the United States and the free nation of the world will be sucked into a one world system within a 3.5-year period. As we know in the book of Revelation, Satan's deception, when he claims to be Christ, shall only last for a 5-month period during the time of the locust and the scorpions. Verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion. Whose dominion? The Antichrist. To consume and destroy it to the end. In other words, God is in control, and his plan shall be fulfilled, and Satan's reign shall be destroyed and revealed to be exactly what it was, a deception and a lie. Verse 27. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Verse 28. Hitherto is the end of the matter. In other words, that's the end of the dream. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter to heart. In other words, his thoughts troubled him because he didn't fully grasp it, but he never forgot it. He always kept it in his mind, in his heart. Now we're going to go over to the book of Daniel chapter 8 and see another vision given unto Daniel by God concerning, again, this fourth kingdom of Babylon. You know, our Father goes to a lot of trouble not only to tell us the truth, but also to reiterate it over and over and over so that we get the message through type or example or through literal. Yet the majority are still blind to the truth because they do not study for themselves. They take the Bible in an English-only understanding, and they listen to the traditions of men or false teachings and never dare to question. Or they're just too lazy to. So, Daniel chapter 8 and verse 1. We're going to see his second vision here. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which had appeared to me first. In other words, this is a second dream. And I saw in verse 2, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Verse 3. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher cast up last. Verse 4. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. Verse 5. And I was considering, and behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Verse 6. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. In other words, he's going to ram him. Verse 7. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler, which means anger, against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed great. Then he was strong. The great horn was broken, and it came to pass that the notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. There came up 4 notable winds toward the 4 winds of heaven. Verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Now that is all 4 directions covered, between this he-goat and between the little horn. That's all encompassing. Now, the he-goat is the one world system rising, powered by, you guessed it, the children of Cain, which kills the ram. And then the little horn comes along. Verse 10. And this little horn, verse 10, it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars of heaven to the ground, and stamped upon them. Does that remind you of the verse where Satan's tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven, meaning the children of God? Verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him, by this false one, the Antichrist, the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. Now, to understand this, what is the daily sacrifice? That is your love to God, your prayers to God, your reverence for God. And if your love and your prayers and your reverence to God, even Christ, is ceased because you cease to worship the real Christ and begin worshiping the false Christ, then the daily sacrifice is taken away from the true Christ and given to a false Christ, the false God. And what is the sanctuary? It is the temple of God, which shall be defiled, as written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and in the book of Revelation, by the Antichrist. Moreover, it is the church and the faithful being stolen away from God by Satan's deception, due to man's ignorance about the truth and due to Satan's power to fool the masses. Verse 12. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of the transgression. You know what that means? That means by his transgression, by his lying and saying he's the true Christ, when he's not, the daily sacrifice is taken away. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Why would it practice and prosper? Because people aren't aware of how Jesus Christ said he would return. Most people are waiting on the any moment rapture theory. So when this Antichrist appears here claiming to be Christ, having the countenance of an archangel, which makes human beings look like filthy rags, and having great words to speak, then what do you think is going to happen? People are going to fall and worship him. Verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, the abomination of desolation, quite frankly, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? Verse 14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Verse 15. And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. Verse 16. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Uli, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. Verse 17. So he came near to where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. In other words, this is for the end times. Verse 18. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. Verse 19. And he said, Behold, I will make thee to know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. Now, we are talking about the end times here. And what you're fixing to have here are the literals. But see the bigger spiritual picture in this. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now again, These are literals, but the types and examples given here are on a spiritual level, a bigger, deeper level, of the one world system being shaped by the sons of Cain and the socialists, and Satan himself coming to power and taking the reins of power as he claims to be Jesus Christ's return. And we're going to see this clearly as we proceed. Verse 22. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood upon it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. This is the Antichrist. In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to full. Do you look around you and see a lot of transgression going on? A lot of laws not being enforced? A lot of people getting away with crimes and getting back out? A lot of political correctness, giving people communist and socialist entitlements? A turning away from God? Children being brainwashed with all sorts of scientific crap? This is that falling away. This is the time when the transgressors are coming to the full, when this one world system is being built, and this city of Babylon, this one world system of Babylon, rising to power. Verse 24. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. Now, his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. Why? Well, because he's the Antichrist, and he's capitalizing on the name of Christ, because people believe that he is the Jesus Christ returned. So, it's not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully. What does this mean? Well, he's not going to come with weapons and war and evil and all the things that most people are taught about the Bible, since they don't understand Greek analogies or Greek metaphors or patterns of speech or colloquialisms. No, he's going to destroy wonderfully by claiming that he is Christ. And he's going to fool a whole bunch of people. And he's going to prosper in his practice. And that is what destroys the mighty and holy people. People that go by the name of Christ man, Christian. Verse 25. And through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper at his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall he destroy many. He shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes. Now who is that? Jesus Christ, the real Christ. But he shall be broken without hand. Why? Because he is broken by the truth and by the return of the true Christ. Verse 26. And the vision of the evening and of the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. In other words, it's not for this time, Daniel. Close it up. Write it down. Verse 27. And I, Daniel, faded and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. And again, this is one reason why it's written, to Satan from God, thou art wiser than Daniel. Now we're going to go to the book of Revelation. And we're going to clarify the link between these two visions of these two books as prophecy. And we know that Jesus in the Gospels has already made Daniel part of the New Testament. And some will say, well, when and where did he do that? Well, Jesus quoted Daniel concerning the abomination of desolation standing where he ought not. Straight from Daniel chapter 9. And the abomination of desolation is not a state of abomination. It is a name given to Satan, the desolator. And his abomination is to lie and say that he is Christ and sit in God's temple, as written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, we're going to turn over again to the book of Revelation, and we're going to go to Revelation chapter 13. So, Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now I want you to think of this, the number 7. How many continents are there on the world? 7. And 10 horns, the 10 rulers, the 10 kings that come to power. That is why on their heads is written the name of blasphemy, and on their crowns. Because their crowns do not come from God Almighty, they come from Lucifer, Satan. Verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. Gee, does that sound familiar, like what we just read in Daniel? And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority. Who gave it to him? The dragon. None other than Satan himself. Verse 3. And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded unto death. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wandered after the beast. Verse 4. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him? Now, the dragon is that which is Lucifer, Satan, the Antichrist, who gives power to the beast, the one world system. So, if you're in a one world system, who is able to make war? You can't, because you're all part of the same government. One world system. This is the whole purpose behind the United Nations and the League of Nations, and has been building for many years. Verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. That's 3.5 years. Again, we know for the elect's sake that his time has been shortened to 5 months. Excuse me. Verse 6. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Now, how can he do that? Well, he blasphemes his name because he claims to be Christ. He blasphemes his tabernacle because he sits in the temple of God claiming to be God. And he blasphemes them that dwell in heaven because he brings fallen angels with him and gives the illusion that he's brought back your relatives and friends and families. And also because the people in heaven, the host of heaven, will not be here to defend against his lies, because it is not time for that yet. Verse 7. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. There you go, the entire world. And all that dwelt upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. That means sharpen up and pay attention. Christ would say that many times. Verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Now you know there is a good example right there in that sentence. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. What is the sword? Revelation chapter 1 verse 16. The sword is the two-edged tongue of Christ, meaning the truth or the word. So let's realize that he who kills with the truth must be killed with the truth. Well, how can someone kill with the truth or the word? Simple. They don't study. Not only are they deceived, but they deceive others with false doctrines and false teachings and traditions of men, such as the any moment rapture, when the Bible clearly states that Jesus does not come first, but that Satan comes first. So they lead people into captivity, the captivity of the king of Babylon. Now the Bible states that Jesus Christ appears at the 7th trump, as 7 thunders utter. In the book of Revelation, and also in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist appears at the 6th trump, the 6th seal, and the 6th plague of the book of Revelation. Now, can you count to 7? Verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. Now this is going to be a reiteration. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, who had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Remember, he looks like the lamb slain. Why? Because none of us have ever seen Jesus Christ with our own eyes. Nor have we seen Satan, but we know that Satan's description is one of a pattern of beauty. His countenance is very wonderful to behold. And when he comes here, claiming to be Christ, probably having nail holes in his hand, since he is an illusionist and a liar, then people are going to fall and worship him. He claims to be to be Christ's return. That is why he speaks like a dragon. He's lying. Verse 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell in to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Now, what is this beast that comes before him, before the Antichrist? It is the one world system which encompasses the whole earth, which, due to its secular, scientific, go-green policies, dumbs down the whole world to where people are confused as to the real truth, because they've walked away from God's Word. Babylon means confusion. Do you remember what happened at the Tower of Babel, where God confounded the masses where they could not understand one another? Hence the name Babylon, which means a state of confusion. And what is this deadly wound by a sword? Well, it is a threat to the world government and to the deception, because one or more of these nations, it says one head, so we'll assume it's one, threaten to pull out or leave the world order and cause it to collapse. No doubt because there is enough truth left in them to see what is happening. Not necessarily against Satan, but against the communist and socialist style policies which are being adopted and enforced. And then Satan appears claiming to be Jesus, and the world government solidifies and yields power to him, so the beast does live. Verse 13. And this is talking of the Antichrist. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. Remember, Satan is supernatural. He is an archangel with powers more than a human being. So when he appears and does things like this, and claims to be Christ, and has the beautiful countenance, again, what do you think will happen? Verse 14. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying unto them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword, and did live. Verse 15. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many that would not worship the beast, that should be killed. Remember what Nebuchadnezzar did when the 3 Israelite children would not fall and worship his idol? And how is it that he gives power to this beast that it should speak? That means he gives it the power to set policy, to make the laws. Such as anyone who will not fall and worship this one world system, or give reverence to it, or pledge allegiance to it, or worship the false Christ, thinking he is Christ, should be put to death. Verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads. Now I want you to look at that really closely. Does that say on their foreheads or on their hand? No. It says in their foreheads and in their right hand. What is in your forehead? Your brain, your mind. And if you believe the lie that Satan is Jesus, then you are deceived and your mind is fooled. So you wear the mark. And what is your right hand symbolic of? That is symbolic of your works. Meaning that you will work for this Antichrist, believing him to be the Christ, in ignorance. Therefore, the mark in the forehead and the mark in the hand. It is not barcodes, as people will try to tell you, because this is the same mark set upon Cain, and at the times of these writings, there were no barcodes. It's a simple misunderstanding, misinterpretation of the Greek language as it was given. Verse 17, to continue. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, what does this mean? You can't buy and sell unless you have the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Well, the name of the beast is the one world system that shall rise under this false Christ, and the number of his name. What is the number of his name? Well, that means you would have to call this false Christ Jesus. You would have to fall and worship him. That is how you take the mark. And that is the only way you will be allowed to buy or sell. You know, the sons of Cain have always controlled commerce. And they have a vast amount of the world's money. Verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. That means keep track over a long period of time of the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Now again, what man? That man of sin, the son of perdition, as written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now let's go into Revelation chapter 9 here for a minute. And let's, as you're taking all this in, try to remember what this vision is all about the fourth kingdom, the kingdom of Babylon, and the head of it. So, Revelation chapter 9 and verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and unto him was given the key to the bottomless pit. Verse 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Do you know what that means? It means the light was cut off. Deception. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded of them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those that have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Well, if they're deceived by thinking Antichrist, Satan, is Jesus Christ, then they don't have the seal of God in their heads, do they? No, they have the mark of the beast. Verse 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, that means horrible pain and agony. Actually, what it means is a scorpion, when he strikes, he locks his pincers down and he stings with his tail. And the victim that he's striking becomes the belly of the beast. In other words, becomes his food, and he regurgitates into him and eats it. In the same way a spider might kill another insect and drink their life's blood. It's the same analogy here, only this is when it happens to a man. Verse 6. In those days men shall seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Why would they do that? Because they are embarrassed. They will be asking for the mountains to fall on them, and there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth, because they're going to wake up to the fact that they've been worshiping the wrong Christs. Verse 7. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were it as it were crowns of gold, and their faces were the faces of men. Now you remember these 10 leaders that come? And this deception that we're talking about? And they had the faces of men. Why? They are men. They may be angelic, but they're still not gods. They're men. Verse 8. And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Now, this hair of women means that they were enticing. They were seductive. But their teeth would rip you into pieces. Verse 9. And they had breastplates as if it were breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots and of many horses running to battle. Verse 10. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. That's how long this deception lasts. Verse 10. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Here you have the two names of Satan. Both of those, Apollyon and Abaddon, mean the destroyer. They are both referring to none other than Satan himself. Verse 12. One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. Now, one of those woes is going to be Satan's power, and the other is going to be when Christ returns. Verse 13. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God. Verse 14. Saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Do you know what the great river Euphrates is? It is the border between Babylon and God's people, between God's confusion and the seed of the truth. Verse 15. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, to slay the third part of men. Again, Satan's tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven. Verse 16. And the number of the army of horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. Verse 17. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth, and of brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as is the heads of lions, and their mouth issued fire, brimstone, and smoke, which means deception. And by these three were the third part of men killed by the fire, by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. In other words, by the deception and the lies. In another place it will be referred to as the flood of Satan. Again, this is a type of the rebellion where Satan's tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven, even in the first earth age. For their power, verse 19, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents, and they had heads, and with them they do hurt. Verse 20, and this means likewise, and also the rest of the men which were killed spiritually by these plagues, yet repented not of their works, or that were not killed by these plagues, but repented not of their works, that they should not worship devils. Is that a clue? And idols of gold, and silver, and brass, and stone, and wood, neither can see, nor hear, nor walk. In other words, these are dead gods. They don't exist. They're made out of wood, silver, stone, and gold. They're man's idols. Verse 21, neither repented they for their murders, nor of their sorceries, or their fornications, nor of their thefts. And what you have there is actually more than two visions. You've got a couple by Daniel, but a couple in the book of Revelation. And this is only a small fraction of what is revealed by God about this fourth kingdom. And like Daniel, John is told to seal up the book, for it is for a future time. Even for now, these end times when Babylon, the fourth kingdom, is almost a reality. So both John and Daniel, as well as Christ, the Gospels, and Paul warned of what things would consummate the end of this earth age. This fourth kingdom of Babylon, which is to say the kingdom of confusion, shall rise, and it shall have a king, none other than Satan, Antichrist. I have various other studies on this subject, such as the rapture and the deception, and the Antichrist, parts 1, 2, and 3. I hope this study has helped you, and it is my prayer for you that you will study your Father's Word in depth, that you will obtain the truth, that you won't just listen to what is spoon-fed to you from most of the pulpits across this land, because, as written, the whole world shall wander after the beast, and the majority of the world is Christianity. And that ought to tell you something right there. As written in Isaiah 54, more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married bride. As we know, the famine for these end times is for hearing the Word of God. Not only hearing the truth, but understanding it. So again, my prayer for you is that you will dig into your Father's Word, and that you will study to show yourself approved, and that you will ask God to bless you every day with His wisdom. Thank you for listening. This has been Just Thoughts.